Welcome to FreeCAD, a powerful open source CAD tool for engineers, designers and hobbyists. Whether you're a complete beginner or someone with a bit of experience with FreeCAD, this course will guide you through FreeCAD version 1, the concepts and features, showing you how to create functional designs from start to finish. The example we'll build in this course will be a simple project containing two parts, which we'll model in FreeCAD's part design workbench. We will later learn how to export the model to a common format, or 3D printing or sharing. By the end of this crash course, you'll be ready to use FreeCAD for your own projects. Before diving in, the first step is to get FreeCAD installed on your system. Installation and setup. Head over to the FreeCAD website where you'll find software for Windows, Mac or Linux, and the download link is available in the description below. When you launch FreeCAD for the first time, a setup window appears. This is where you choose your language, units, metric or imperial, navigation style. You can even select a style similar to other CAD software, which is useful if you're migrating. You can also set the theme. Through this crash course, I will be using the dark theme for comfort and eye-friendly experience. If you don't see this setup, you can modify the settings directly from FreeCAD using the top menu, Edit, Preferences. Here you will also find additional settings to help with making the interface easier to use, such as text size for the tree view and sketcher point size for geometry sketching. Once you're set up, you'll see FreeCAD's interface. FreeCAD's workbenches. FreeCAD can be thought of like a fabrication shop, with several benches each equipped with specific tools. But while they can work independently of each other, they often interact to form a cohesive workflow. The workbenches can be accessed from the drop-down in the toolbar at the top. We have workbenches for assemblies, a CAM workbench for CNC, drafting for 2D drafts, and a number of others, including the part design workbench. The part design workbench is ideal for parametric modeling. It's easier on the beginner as we're forced into a workflow that is from the start, linear and contained. In this course, we'll be focusing on two workbenches in FreeCAD, and that's both the part design and the sketcher for creating the geometry for the operations. Organizing your workspace. The workspace in FreeCAD is made up of toolbars and panels. I'm going to create a new document. We also see another panel, the 3D view. This is where our model will be created. On the left-hand side, you'll see a number of panes. We have the model pane, followed by two tabs, and underneath there is a task pane. If I click and hold on the task, I can move this into different places and snap it to different parts of the screen. I'm going to combine it with the model view. I hover over the left-hand side and move it down until the whole of the left-hand side is highlighted in blue. I now release the left mouse button and both the model and the task tab are now combined. This saves space. Please note that there is a divider. We hover over it there, we can see it. If we bring this all the way down, it will become hidden. And this is often a reason why we can't see some of the options on the panel. If I go down below, we see that the splitter is displayed. We can left click and drag this up, bringing the pane back into position. All other panes can be customized. Let's keep it simple with just the two panes. If you haven't done already, we can enter full screen mode. I'll come out to view and coming down to full screen. You may see the report view panel down the bottom here. Now I can enable that by coming to view, panels, and clicking on the report view. If you do see this panel, just come over to the right hand side and click on the cross. We don't need this for the time being. This will pop up on errors and can be quite annoying. To turn this off, come back into the edit and the preferences, and within the general drop down, we'll find report view. You may see that the show report view on error, on warning may be checked. If they are, just uncheck these. The panel will stop popping up on those errors. The notification area, I have the non-intrusive notifications that pop up, and this will show any notifications on the status bar. Let's OK these settings and move on to the 3D view navigation. To navigate the 3D view, we first need to select a navigation style. And we have a drop down here that we can click to select which one we want. So if you're coming from another CAD package, you can use the same keyboard shortcuts and mouse movements as, say, Blender or Tinkercad. Myself, I use the touchpad control. Now, if I select this, the drop-down changes to touchpad, and if I hover over it, we can see the controls. Though touchpad is designed for laptops with a touchpad, we can also use the mouse. Let's get acquainted with those shortcuts. I'm going to come up to the top, come to View, and toggle Axis Cross. This gives me an axis at the center point, the point of origin. We can see Z points up and down, Y is away and towards us, and X is off to the right and left. If I look for my zoom, we can see our shortcuts there. So I can use my shortcut, press touchpad or mouse, and I can zoom in and out of the screen. Notice on the right hand side, our scaling changes. Let's look at our next control, and that's the rotate. I'm going to hold down Alt on the keyboard and move my mouse to the right. We see we get the rotate icon and a point on the screen that is pink in color. I can rotate up and down and left and right. Pink is the center of rotation, and we can see those axes move. Let's look at pan. We can see that's using the shift. Let's move the mouse to the center of the screen, hold down shift, and we see a move icon appear. I can move the 3D view to the left and the right. In the top right hand corner, we also see this cube, where if we rotate, we can see the cube rotates as well. We also have an axis down in the bottom right hand corner. Again, these can be modified. Coming up to Edit, Preferences, and we can customize those widgets. Let's go into Display and click on 3D View. We can see the Show Coordinate System in the corner, and that was the axis down the right hand corner here. Let's move this screen over to the left so we can see it there. I'm going to increase it by 30% and hit Enter. That closes the preferences, and we can see that's a much larger size now. There's also preferences for the 3D cube as well. The 3D cube allows us to select the views like top, and if we use our Alt and rotate downwards, we can see top of the cube now. Click that, we can see rear. We can rotate round as well by using the arrows and change our views using the left, right, up and down arrows. The side of the cube and the edges can be selected as well. And that moves our 3D view into those perspectives. At any time, we can hit the home key to reset our view. Creating your first part. We are modeling in the part design. I've chosen that from the drop down. If we haven't already, let's create a new document. The toolbar of the part design has become active. Each part you create will be created within something called a body. This is a container that holds the part. When we create the body, you'll notice in the tree view on the left hand side, we have the body, and if we open this up, nested in there is the origin. Notice we can't see the origin at the moment. If I click to unselect the body, notice the body is in bold and the origin is hidden. I can use the eye icon on the side here to show the origin, or I can click on it and press the spacebar to toggle the visibility. If I click on some blank space, we can see the planes and the axes of that origin. The body itself is active, and you can see that it's in bold in the tree view. If this wasn't in bold, we can double click it or right click and make sure the active body is checked. Sketching the base geometry. 2D sketches are the foundation of most parts in the part design. To create a sketch, we select the sketch icon in the toolbar. It allows us to attach the sketch to a plane. We can either attach it to the planes by selecting on the screen or by selecting them in the panel on the left. I'm going to pick the XY plane and hit OK. Notice our navigation cube is now showing top and the XY plane is visible to us. Normally this will be invisible. It's only because I've shown it in the tree view. I'm going to click on it and press the spacebar. Let's come over to the Task tab. FreeCAD will automatically adjust your view perpendicular to the plane that you've selected. To reposition the view, use your navigation shortcuts. Remember, we can get a reminder of them by rolling over the drop down the bottom, and we see them there. For instance, I can rotate my view around and start sketching from a different angle. If I want to get back to my normal view, I can select View Sketch icon, and that reorientates my view. Draw in the sketch. Now let's draw the geometry for the base plate. We'll draw one side and later use a mirror operation in the part design. We can draw this part in many ways, and the mirror operation is a matter of choice. It just gives you exposure to the tool and how to use it. You'll see a red line that runs horizontal, which is the x-axis, and a green line that runs vertical, the y-axis. We'll be at the origin center of the body. Let's create a rectangle. Select the rectangle from the toolbar. Move the mouse into the center of the 3D view. You'll see some coordinates by the right hand side of the cursor. As you can see, it's saying -46, and as we nearer to this vertical axis, it decreases to 0 and then goes into the positive numbers as we move to the right. By using the zoom shortcuts, you notice the scaling changes down in the right hand corner, and we can use more of the space in the 3D view. When we're using the tools, we can use the navigation shortcuts and the mouse to position our 3D view. So I'm going to use the coordinates and come out from the vertical axis approximately -50 millimeters, which is going to be about here. I'm going to click once and come down, and without clicking again, I'm going to type in some numbers. We see the top dimension is highlighted. I'm going to type in 50 into the top dimension, press the tab, and 50 into the side dimension, and hit enter. We've automatically dimensioned the rectangle. Right click will cancel the tool. We now have this rectangle, and if you notice to the left, it has a degree of freedom. It has 2 degrees of freedom. Our aim is to get this to 0 degrees of freedom, which means it's fully constrained. This is best working practices, but we don't have to do this. I'm going to add a symmetry constraint. Let's click on some space just to make sure nothing's selected. We'll select the top point here. It'll be highlighted in green, and you see on the left, it's highlighted as well. We don't have to hold down Control to select the next point. It's added to something called the Hungry selection. 2 points are added now. If I accidentally added this line, it will be added as well. We just click on it again to remove it from the selection. Now the 2 points have added, I'm going to select the middle point, this one here, and this will become the symmetrical point because we'll use symmetrical constraint. When we click that, these 2 points become symmetrical to the horizontal axis, and our sketch has gone green, meaning it's fully constrained. We look to the left, we have fully constrained. There's no degrees of freedom here. This means we cannot move this until we delete a constraint from the 3D view or the constraints that have been added on the left-hand side here. Let's add some more geometry. I want to round off these corners with something called a fillet. If we look on the toolbar, we have the fillet here. If we can't see it, we can right-click and select Create Fillet. Our tool will become active. To use the fillet, we hover over one line, click once, and then hover over the other line and click again. A fillet will be added. And notice we've got a degree of freedom now. Let's add the fillet to the bottom. And we right click to cancel the tool. I'm going to set a radius for the fillet now. We can use a single tool called the dimensioning tool. This is a multi-purpose tool that allows us to add various dimensions to our sketch. I'm going to select the fillet and we get a radius. Click once and we can drop it where we want. So I'm going to drop it over here, click again, and we can set the radius. I'm going to set this to 10 millimeters and hit enter. Now we could select the radius for this one here. It adds another constraint that's not needed. We're going to make these two equal. Let's right click to cancel the tool and use the equal constraint. And we'll select the edges that we want to make equal. Select one and select the other. You can see an equal constraint has been added. If we look down, the equal constraint has been added to the list. Let's right click to cancel the tool and we're fully constrained again. This sketch will make a complete solid, but we want some holes in here. We can do that in a single sketch. Let's come up to the circle, click on the circle, and we'll hover over the point. This point here that's been added via the fillet. We see we get a coincident constraint appear by the side of our mouse pointer, along with the circle tool. If I click once, bring this out, we can drop a circle in here if I click again. The tool is still active, so let's come down to the bottom, hover over that point, we snap to that point, click once for coincident constraint, come out and drop the circle in. Let's right click to cancel the tool. And I'm going to use the equals constraint, that one, then the other. And now I'm going to use the dimensioning tool. Click on that. We don't have to cancel the other tool because we've selected another one. And select the circle. Let's bring the dimension out here. And I'll also set this one to 10 millimeters. And hit OK. Right click to cancel the tool, and we can drag our constraints into some spare space. Everything is green, everything is fully constrained. Let's hit close. We have our first sketch that we can run operations against. Let's save our project. Let's go up to File, Save. I'm going to supply a file name of base part and hit enter. Add in volume. Volume can be added to a sketch via additive operations. These are extrusion tools that extrude the sketch in different ways. The most basic of all is the pad, which extrudes in a straight direction. To use the tool, the sketch must be selected. We can do this by selecting the sketch from the tree view and then selecting the pad operation. The length of the extrusion is controlled by the length parameter. We'll set this one to 5 millimeters. When we click off, the model is updated in the 3D view. This creates a feature. Let's hit OK. We have now padded our sketch 5 millimeters to create this feature here. In the left hand side, you can see a little icon by the side of the pad. This is known as the tip. Each time we add an operation, another icon will appear in the tree view in a linear fashion. The tip will move to the next icon as we create the separate features of our part. Just want to spend a minute to explain about profiles and open and close wires. A profile determines the shape of an operation. So for instance, this is a rectangle which will create a profile. The rectangle in the sketcher is made up of lines and points. These will create an edge and a vertex. Each of these points are coincident to each other, and this creates something called a closed wire. Each of these edges are known as a wire. Part Design Workbench is a solid modeling workbench. You have to create a solid model. If I poured water onto this shape, it wouldn't leak into it. So it's closed. It's a closed wire. I can take the sketch and create a pad to make it a solid. If I delete that pad and come back into the sketch and take this point here, and you see we have a number of coincident constraints. These are each of the points going around the rectangle. And I hit delete on the keyboard. The coincident constraint is removed. I've only got 3 now, and I can break the wire to make it an open wire. If I hit close now and try to extrude that, what will happen? It will try to extrude it as a shell, and Part Design won't allow it. Other workbenches in FreeCAD will. So if I OK that, you can see wire not closed. To fix this issue, go into the sketch, and we click and highlight those 2 points. And we use the coincident constraint, and this is a combined constraint. This combines both coincident and something called a point on line constraint, which we'll learn about. Click that, those two are together, and now this will extrude using the pad operation. It is extruded back to a solid. So a sketch can also contain multiple profiles. So if I take this profile, extruded it, selected the top face, and created a sketch upon it, and then say add a rectangle and something else on here and hit close. If I take that sketch now, you can see there's 2 profiles within. That will create 2 individual volumes that are connected to the main volume. Those are 2 profiles determining a shape. If we delete that and come back into the sketch and add, say, a line in here, this won't work. If I hit close and try to extrude that, pad that, again, I get the wire not closed. Now this can cause a bit of an issue. If, for instance, if we come into the sketch and we accidentally move this line and it was underneath, it can be quite hard to see. And you'll find that when we pad it or extrude it, we get that problem. We just have to be mindful of that. Removing volume. Removing volume in the part design is achieved by using a subtractive operation. In this case, a subtractive extrude, known as a pocket. Rather than adding volume in the shape of the sketch, the operation takes volume away. We need to clear out a section on the top of this feature. It's important to look at its shape from different viewpoints to envision how this will be sketched. Looking at the cross section of the shape, we see it's a single profile. We first select the side face and then select New Sketch. We look back to the model and at the new sketch, we see that the attachment support is the face we selected, and we have a map mode of flat face. This has attached the sketch to that face of the pad. Let's go back to our task and start sketching. If I use the rotate, we can see where the sketch has been placed. I'm going to import some external geometry, which we're going to be using the constraints against. The tool here, Create External Geometry, allows me to do this. I click on the tool, select the top edge. I can import this whole edge. I can now constrain geometry to this. I'm going to come up and use the polyline. We're going to sketch a profile on this face. Come around to the front view. Using the polyline, I'm going to hover over the vertical axis. Let's zoom in a bit so we can see what we're doing. We get a point on line constraint automatically attaching to the vertical axis. Click once and move the line across. And then I'm going to click and go up at an angle and connect point on object constraint to the imported geometry. Click once and move to the right. If I zoom in, we can see we've imported a point from the external geometry and we get a coincident constraint. Click again, and then I want to come down and connect coincident to my polyline, and that closes the geometry. We have a closed sketch. Right click to cancel, and now we can add some constraints to this geometry. I'm going to set the height of this line here, and to do that I can click it and use the dimension tool. After I click the dimension tool, I can come down and then click once again and set this 2 millimeters. This was different to before because we actually selected the tool first. If I right click, we can do it that way as well by selecting the tool first and then selecting the part we want to dimension. I'm going to select the bottom line, bring this down and set this to 24 millimeters. Let's zoom out and see what's happened. The line has moved, that's fine. We can right click and move this across if we wanted to, or we could just dimension straight against it. Let's use the dimension tool again. This time I'm going to place in an angle constraint. Click one line, we get the dimension. Next thing we do is come down and click and next edge. We now get the angle dimension. Bring this up, click once more and type in 114 degrees and hit enter. Right click to cancel the tool. Our profile is now fully constrained, as we can see on the left. Let's close the sketch. We can see the sketch is automatically highlighted, which allows us to run our operation against it. You can see the sketch is attached to that face. As the sketch is already selected, let's use the pocket operation. Click the pocket operation, we can see material is being removed. We want this to be removed throughout the length. Let's come up, and rather than typing in a length, drop the type down and go through all. We've now got a pocket that's removed material through the whole length of the object. Let's hit OK. We've now got our body with our last operation, the pocket. Housekeeping. It's advisable to rename the body to be more descriptive. Let's right click and rename and set this to base. We also can give the body a comment and have it displayed in the tree view. To do this, we have to enable the column. Let's right click, come down to tree settings and come over to show descriptions and check it. We now have a descriptions column. To edit the descriptions column, we click on our object, in this case the body, make sure the mouse pointer is in the description column, and we use the F2 key. This allows us to edit the description. I'm just going to give it a version number. Place in version 1.0 and hit enter. We now got a description. Mirroring. We have one side of our base. We want to duplicate this side and mirror it to the right. There is a mirror operation. To use it, we select the base, as we want to mirror the whole lot. Individual features can be mirrored. The base is already selected from the tree view, but there is another way. I've just clicked on some blank space to unselect everything. If I select the face, one click of the mouse, that selects the face. If I click again, it selects a feature. You can see here, if I click again, it selects the body. I can now come up and use the mirror operation, mirrored. If I click that, it's going to ask me if I want to transform the body or the tool shapes. As we're mirroring the whole body, click on the body. As you can see, it's already mirrored the body, but it's in the wrong plane. We want it to go across the YZ plane, this one here. I can come into the plane and drop this down and pick YZ. Now we've mirrored across the YZ plane. Let's click OK to accept. And we've completed our first part, the base. Build in the bracket. We have a number of options to start the new part. We could create a new file, or our chosen route to continue in the current one to create a repository of parts. First, we need to hide the current part. We click on the body and press the spacebar. We create a new body, and this becomes bold, so this is now the active body. Any new sketches and operations will be applied to this body. And let's create a new sketch. We're going to pick the same plane, which is the XY plane. This is the plane of the new body. The sketch is going to be very similar to what we sketched before. This time, let's tackle it in a different way. The part is going to be 25mm by 50mm. So looking at the scale, we'll use the zoom shortcuts to allow us to get into the correct scale for our part. Let's come into the 3D view and scale in. You notice the scaling has moved down. We've got 88mm going along this way and 54 going along this way. Just going to zoom out a little bit and then reposition the viewpoint so we're in the middle. Let's use the polyline tool. This uses the M key on the keyboard to cycle through different behaviors. Left click on the tool and come into the 3D view. we're going to use the coordinates by the side of the pointer. Let's come in and hover over the vertical axis and click once. As we move the mouse to the left, we can see a line appears. We also see some coordinates. I'm going to go around about -25 millimeters. Doesn't matter how exact this is. So 24, click, and then I'm going to hit the M key. This changes the mode. It's drawing a line downwards. Let's hit the M key again. Now drawing a line forwards. M key once more, and we get an arc. Let's come round and click again. We have our arc in here. Don't worry about this line. We had the necessary constraints to make it straight. After you create an arc, the line that will come out from the bottom is tangent to the arc. So it may go off in a different direction. Let's hit the M key again and once more to get a different type of line. And we'll draw that in. Notice that we've got a vertical constraint, which keeps that in line. Hit M again and again to get the arc. Use the shortcuts to zoom and position the 3D view, and we look at the arc and notice the center point of the arc is where the two horizontal and vertical lines meet. So if they're at a right angle, then that's going to be a more tangent connection. I'm just going to leave the tangent line and connect up this vertical axis. And now it's automatically gone to a line, adjust the 3D view and connect up this point here. With a coincident constraint, close in our geometry, create a profile. Far from perfect, let's right click to cancel the tool and start adding some constraints. Now, it's up to you if you want to use the polyline method. If you want to keep to the rectangle and use fillets in there like we did before, it's totally up to you. This is just another way of sketching. I'm going to add some constraints in here. Now, if I move this, you notice that we've got a few issues. I first want to make this line straight and also this one as well. So we can use this combined horizontal and vertical constraint. Click that, click the top line, and click the bottom line. The constraints have been added. If this one was out, we'll just click this one as well. Let's right click to cancel the tool. And now I'm going to add some tangency constraint to make this line flow tangent into this arc. I select the line and the arc and use the tangency. We get this message that comes up. Let's hit OK. And now that's tangent. We've got something similar to what we had before. Let's add some circles in. Use a circle and roll over this point, coincident, and bring the circle out. The same on this point here, and bring the circle out. Notice that I haven't added any dimensioning constraints. You can do it after as well. So before with the fillet, we had a point here. We no longer have this. So we have to use some other geometry to dimension our profile. So I'm going to select the dimensioning tool and select this point. When we do that, it dimensions to the center of origin. So if we come up and select the other point, this one here, it will now dimension this length. We come up and just drop it into place. And we'll set that 25 millimeters. Everything will adjust, and we do the same on this point, down and click on this point, bring this out, drop it, and set this one 50 millimeters and hit enter. Let's dimension the circle, bring this out and set this to 10 millimeters, hit enter, and set the arc to a radius of 10 millimeters. Dimension the whole of the top. Let's right click to cancel the tool. And then we're going to use the equal constraint against this one and this one. Make those equal. And the same between the arcs. These two arcs, make them equal as well. We only can move it along the vertical. That is 1 degree of freedom. And again, I'm going to take this point and this point. You can see those points have just been selected in there. If anything else gets selected, just click in some blank space, select the 2 points. And finally the middle point, all we want to make symmetrical to, and use the symmetry constraint. Everything's gone green, it's fully constrained, and we can close out the sketch. The sketch has been automatically selected. If not, we can either select it from the tree view, or we can click on an edge and then click again to select the whole sketch. And we'll pad this using the pad. And we'll set this to 5mm. Click off, we can see it in there. Let's hit OK. We're now going to tackle the side part of the bracket. For this, I'm going to sketch upon this face. Attaching a sketch to it by selecting the sketch icon. We've attached the sketch flat face to the selected face. Choose the view sketch, get it into position, and we'll just move the 3D view down. So we've now got plenty of space to sketch. I'm going to import 2 points using the external geometry tool, import geometry, and select 1 point. We can see it highlighted there, and then the next point. They come in purple. We see them on the elements on the left hand side there. Let's right click to cancel the tool, and I'm going to use the line tool to create a line between this point coincident to this one. Notice it's gone green, fully constrained. Let's right click again, and now we're going to add some arcs. For that, I'm going to come up to the arc tool, and by the side of it we have a down arrow, which means there's more options. Let's select create arc by 3 points. We hover over our first point, constrain coincident to that, click once, come out, click again, and then we can create the arc. Drop the arc in. Do the same on this side as well, coincident to that point, up, and then create the arc. And then right click to cancel the tool. I'm going to use the line tool and add a line in. Hover over this point on the arc, add a line, and the same on the other side. And we're looking for a vertical line, so the vertical constraints are being automatically added. Let's right click to cancel the tool and add some constraints. Let's add the tangent constraint. And we'll make this arc tangent to this line. OK in the message. Same on this side. And this arc tangent to this line. And OK that. And the same on the other side. And OK. Let's right click to cancel the tool and use the arc by 3 points again. Click that. Hover over the endpoint, attach coincident to it, hover over the other endpoint, again attach coincident, and create the arc. Let's right click to cancel the tool. Again, we're going to use tangency using the tangent constraint. Select the line and the arc, and those tangent, and do the same on the other side. And go arc, then line, and hit OK. Right click to cancel the tool. I need to keep this centered. This is quite easy to do. We don't need a symmetry constraint. I can take the point of this arc and the vertical axis and use the coincident constraint. That centers that arc on there. And because everything's tangent, it keeps those mirrored over that axis. Let's place some dimensions in. I'm going to use the dimensioning tool. And we dimensioned from this point. You notice that it's gone to redundant constraint. And that's because we're trying to place a constraint in between this point, and by default it's going to the center. But this is already centered, so there's no need for this constraint. It doesn't add anything. Don't worry, because what we're going to actually do is click on this point, and now we come out to the left. And we want a vertical constraint. As we travel down, the constraint will change. Click to drop and set this to 30 millimeters. Next, we'll add a radius. So we select the arc, our tool is still active, and we can place a radius in here. If we get a diameter, just use the M key on the keyboard and cycle through the different dimensions. So that's add that radius and set it 10 millimeters and hit enter. We're now going to make a hole by creating a circle and connecting up to this point here. For instance, that point, move the circle out, and we've got the field there, so we can add 5 millimeters into that field and hit enter. We're now fully dimensioned. Right click to cancel the tool, fully constrained, and we'll hit close. So we've added a sketch to this face and kept it along this edge. The sketch is touching the previous feature, the pad. If I take the sketch and add a pad, it looks like nothing's happened. That's because the pad has traveled 10 millimeters this way. It needs to go this way. At the moment, it's detached from the body. Let's come in and click reverse direction. Now we can see the pad. Let's set this to 5 mil and click off, take an effect, and hit the OK. We've got the first part of our bracket. Let's come in and rename the body. Right click, rename, and call it bracket. And click off. Make sure we save, and we can move on to the next step. Add a gusset. Though ribs and gussets cannot be created via a dedicated operation, they can easily be modelled. Again, profile selection is the key to minimize operations. Let's take a slightly longer route to showcase how this selection affects the build, and to demonstrate a dress-up operation before offering a quicker solution. We'll start by selecting a face. The gusset is going to run down this face and across the bottom. So we select our face and create a sketch. The sketch has been mapped to that face, but you notice it intersects the bottom. We can use the View Section tool to see the whole sketching plane. Let's click on the left view and import this line from the external geometry using the Create External Geometry tool. Import the line. This will be used to attach a rectangle to. Select the rectangle tool and sketch a rectangle hovering over the imported geometry to attach point on object constraint to. Right click to cancel the tool and then use the top 2 points, and then finally selecting the vertical axis and use a symmetry. The rectangle is centered over the vertical axis. Let's add some dimensions. Let's take the top line, use the dimensioning tool, drop in a dimension, and set this to 5 millimeters. Next, select a vertical line. Click to add the dimension and set this to 20 millimeters. We're fully constrained, and let's hit close. Our sketch has been added, and it touches the top face of the base. This means when I take the sketch, select it, and use the pad, it will be padded out this way to create the gusset. Let's set this to 20 millimeters and hit enter. We notice that the face here has been combined. This is because the pad has created material up to the same plane as this face. FreeCAD has automatically refined the feature, merging the additional faces. We now need to create an angled cutout here. Now there's many ways of doing this. We're going to introduce the dress up feature. the chamfer. Let's take this top edge to chamfer, this one here, and pick the chamfer tool. You notice material is being removed. Come over to the left and we'll increase the size. You'll see the chamfer move down. This is one of the reasons why I want to demonstrate this feature. As we move the chamfer down towards the base, you'll notice something happens. It's gone back to the square. Look at the size. We have 20 millimeters running down this way. If I set this to 20 millimeters, it still hasn't taken. This will actually cause an error. Let's bring this back to 19. The fillet has taken, but we have extra material here that we don't want. This is where we have to set this something like 19.99 and click off. This means that these two edges still exist, but they're quite small. It's something to watch out for in the future with other operations. Let's OK the operation. And we have our finished bracket. Remember to save. This is not the desired route. For example, it can cause some problems with the last issue. With parametric modeling, you can go back and modify the previous operations. I can change the length of the pad by changing the properties or even double clicking it. If I change the length to be more than 20 millimeters, let's say 23, we don't have any problems. But if I change the length of that pad, say 18, you see we have an error. There's a problem with the chamfer and we have an exclamation mark. And this is due to it crossing this edge as before. So we need to back this off to allow for the chamfer to take. Let's cancel that and set the pad back. 20. Our chamfer is now fine and we can carry on with our modeling. Alternative to creating the gusset. A much more simplistic approach will be to create the gusset with one sketch. I've closed out of FreeCAD and I'm going to open the base part. The reason why I've done this is because we have two bodies in the document. We have the bracket and we have the base, which has been hidden. When you come into a document that has two bodies, there will be no active body. If I started sketching against this, it's going to ask me what is the active body to place the operation against. Let's cancel that. So all we need to do is come in and double click the bracket to work on. Once we've done that, it becomes active. We can see it in bold in the tree view. And I'm going to delete some features. So I'm going to delete the chamfer. We're back to the pad. We're going back in history. I'm going to delete the pad. What will happen now is the sketch will be released, which we hit delete on as well. So I want to create a sketch from this side, a triangle that sits in the middle, which we'll pad from. To do this, we obviously need to be on a different plane, the XZ plane. Now there's two ways of attaching the sketch. We can make sure that nothing's selected and create a sketch. This means that we'll attach to the base plane of the active body. So we've got these planes back up and I can pick the XZ plane. And because we've modeled this over the center, it fits nicely with our model. There is another way. Let's cancel that. We've been using attachment modes where we've attached to the faces. So I'm looking for a planar face that I can attach to from the XZ plane. The only one I've got is this one here. Planar as being the vertices are all along the same plane. So let's select that one. Now, if we click again, because I've already selected, you see the whole model is selected. And this is a common mistake because we've actually selected the pad. The attachment won't be to the face. So let's select the face and then create a new sketch. We attach that face now. At this point, notice how this is attached. The red is the x-axis and the green is the y-axis. But looking at the navigation down here, we can see that the X runs this way and the Y runs this way. So it's actually running this way. And the Z is in place of the Y-axis. So where's the Z gone and why are they orientated in this way that differs to this? Well, the Z with 2D sketches and 2D objects runs normal to sketch. So it'll run perpendicular to the sketching plane. It's running this way. So I wanted to change the position of this. I'll come over to the model. We click on the sketch, which is hidden at the moment. And we come down to our attachment, not the placement. See, the attachment is first. This placement will be read-only. We can see it's attached to the support face 6 on the pad, and the map mode is flat face, meaning that the Z in the attachment offset and the positioning will move the sketch backwards and forwards to the position that we need. So we want -25, position that in the right place. Let's come back to our task and look to see what's happened. So you can see that's in the middle now. So we want to sketch on this plane, but we have volume that's in front of us, in front of the sketch plane, that we need to view through. And we can use the view section tool, cut through that. Let's position this to the front and start sketching. So I want to create a triangle in here. As we section through, I can import geometry by using the create external geometry and select this line here, and that will be projected into our view. The line is projected forward, which makes a point. So if we're looking from this way, the line is actually straight on to us. So it will come through as a point. We need that one there, and also we need something vertical to attach to as well. So I'm going to take this edge here and click on that. We see that edge has come through as well. Let's use the polyline. And we'll attach to this point, which is coincident. Now, if I had the line in, say, here, and the point is here, I can come up and attach my top part of the line to this line here with point on object constraint, point on object, and then close the geometry by coming in and attaching back the starting point of the polyline. Let's right click to cancel the tool, and then take this line and use the horizontal vertical constraint, place that in there. Let's add some dimensions because this is not fully constrained yet. So we want this line here. I'm going to set a height in here. We'll drop that in and set that to say 25 millimeters and hit enter. Now I can close. We have the sketch in here. We select the sketch and now we can add the pad. Note the pad is adding volume this way. We want to add it in both directions. If we look to the left, we have the option to be symmetric to plane. We click that, that's the plane it's symmetrical to, our sketch plane, and we can adjust the millimeters. Say something like 5 millimeters and click off. And we'll hit OK. And we've added our gusset. We have less operations in the tree view, and any change, this one, let's set this to 15 millimeters, becomes more stable. Just hit Ctrl Z to undo that. Changing the appearance. There are many ways to change the appearance of our parts. I've loaded the base part file and I've got the bracket as currently my active body. So we've got a choice of a random color, actually colouring the individual faces, or we can add a material for the appearance. We can do that by coming into the model, selecting the model, then right clicking and going down to appearance, not material. Click on appearance, and then we have all of our materials on the left hand side. I'm going to select aluminium, and you can see how that's changed. come up and close the material. So now we've added the material to the object and changed its appearance. Let's do the same with the base plate. We can click on the bracket and press the space bar. Come up to the base plate and press the space bar. A base plate has the default material. Let's click on it first and then right click and then go up to appearance. I'm going to give this a chrome material. So I'm going to come down and select chrome. That's added that material to that model. Let's close it. Now we can add colors. If we come over to the base and look down to the view, we can see we've got a number of view properties in here. And we're looking for shape appearance. This one here. This spans out and we have diffuse color, ambient color, etc. If we use the default shape appearance here and click on that, we can change the color from within using the select color panel. We just choose a color and then hit OK. Exporting your model. To export your model, use the tree view and click on the body and come up to File and Export. From here you can choose the file type. If we drop this down, we have step and STL. We also have a number of other formats in here. Just remember, with the file formats, there can be one or more extensions on some of them. For instance, with STL, there is a .stl and a .ast. Just changing the file extension will export into those formats. For STL, we'll pick STL and then hit Save. Your STL will be exported. We can actually import that back into FreeCAD and see what it looks like. Let's come up to File and Import and pick the STL. Open that. Click on the base, body, and press the space bar. We can see the STL has been imported. We would import this to a slicer or another 3D program to use it in our application. Same process will apply to step. There's one thing to remember when exporting. Let's click on that STL, which is known as mesh, and delete it. We have a bracket in here as well. Even that's not visible, if I export that by coming up to File and come down to Export. Export bracket and save. If I import that, File and Import, click on the bracket, open that, you can see that import's fine. So we've exported out the selected. I'm just going to click on the mesh and delete it. And this time I'm going to come into the bracket and pick an operation. So I'm going to pick this operation here. The chamfer is hidden at the moment, and that's because the bracket is not visible. Just click on the bracket, press the spacebar. Let's come into the chamfer, it's still hidden. Press the spacebar on that. If I come up and say click on the pad and press the spacebar, I'm showing the previous operation. Notice the tip operation is at the chamfer. This is our last operation, but I can export out at different stages. So I'm going to click on this one, this pad, and press the spacebar. So I've now gone back in time and had a look at that operation. If I click the pad and go up to File and Export, you notice it's saying in the file name pad 2. Let's save that. I'm going to click on the bracket and press the spacebar. Now, if I come up to File and Import, I can select the exported file and open that. I'll get that operation. All the features that have been created up to that operation are now in my STL. The mesh appears in the tree view. I can select on it and delete it. There is also another option here, and that's to select multiple parts. Let's click on the chamfer and press the spacebar. And click on bracket, press the spacebar on that one so we can see it, and also on the base and press the spacebar. So we've got the base and the bracket visible. They're not connected together in any way. They're just visible on screen. Let's click the base, then control click the bracket. Let's go up to File and come down, Export. The name has already been placed in there. We can change that if we want to. Let's hit Save. I'm going to select those two and press the spacebar. And let's see what imports this time. File and Import. When we look across, we've got our base part. Open that up. We've got both of them embedded into each other. They will be components in the STL, inside the mesh itself. There is a mesh workbench. I can select the base part, come up to meshes, and split by components. We see now we have two components. First, click on the base part, press the space bar so it's hidden. Otherwise, it's going to get in the way. If I hover over these, you can see their individual components. Right click and transform. And you can see those are two separate objects. We've come to that point where you've learned how to use FreeCAD to create two simple models. You have the tools to get yourself up and running to create more projects. But where do we go from here? Well, don't worry, on my YouTube channel, you'll find extensive learning material to help you learn more about FreeCAD and to master its learning curve. One of those courses is Basic Beginners for FreeCAD, where it takes you from the beginning, as we did in this course, all the way through the part design, and will progress further into FreeCAD as time goes by. Also on my Patreon, you'll find learning material in textual format for the course, early access to videos, and written versions of tutorials that you can follow at your own pace. So I hope you enjoyed this course, and I hope to see you in future videos. If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via Ko-Fi or Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/MANG0 or via PayPal at paypal.com/paypalme/Darren B. Eastone. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/Mango Jelly Solutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. I thank everybody that's donated so far. It really helps to keep the lights on so I can produce more content and also expand the channel. Thank you for liking, commenting and subscribing to these videos, and I hope to see you again in the next one.